What up, everybody? It's Andy from Tap FinTech. Today, we're going to be going through looking at THOR, using it to help us navigate the markets. If you've been following along our channel, you know that this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I am simply showing people how I personally use our tool known as THOR at taptrade.io and how you can too if you want to be on the right side of probability within the markets. Just to start out, we do maintain a 70% cumulative win rate on our trading signals, and we use those trading signals to help us make our plan and trade our plan. It's as simple as that. So far in the classes, we've called 5 profitable trades. We've made numerous plans around numerous different assets. We've been primarily focusing on assets like Solana, Jito, Injective. Today, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We'll still cover Solana. I'll quickly touch on Bitcoin, and then we're going to use our tool known as Ask Thor just to simply find like the trade of the day. These classes are pre-recorded and released on YouTube 24 hours after. If you want access to live trading, want to join the trading community, you can come and join our Discord, and you can find that link at taptrade.io. And you can come and join a bunch of other people who are learning how to use Tap and using Tap and Thor to navigate the markets themselves. So a lot of power in terms of community. These classes are meant to help people learn how to use Thor, and it is not meant to just spoon feed you trades. It's the whole mentality of give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, he feeds his family for the rest of his life. Thor is a tool that we are comfortable and confident being able to help sustain any level of trader throughout the entire course of their trading career. Bear market, bull market, it doesn't matter. We still maintain a 70% win rate as a cumulative win rate on our trading signals, regardless of the market conditions. So if you're still here, thank you. Thanks for joining. Click like and subscribe if you're finding us on YouTube. Follow us if you're on TikTok. And yeah, frogs fuck if you're coming at it from the NFT side of things. And let's fucking rock and roll. I need to quit cursing as much because they will ban me from YouTube. Apparently we've already gotten a fun notification. So just let's jump into it. So super fun, like timestamp today. It's 6:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bitcoin's comfortably at 87.5, Ethereum right over $2,000. Solana's at 142. AVAX doing well at 22.92. So all things considered, you know, backtracking to what we talked about last week, we have known that we've been at key levels of support across the board. A lot of us did buy those levels of support. And what we're seeing is a bit of what we had expected going into this week. Using those previous levels of support and trying to understand where our resistance is going to be, trying to understand sort of what the macro moves on the table are, and then just navigating as profitably as possible. For me personally, I was long and strong at some of these lower levels. We talked about how Solana specifically fell through that one-day level of support. We had entries lower. We've been sort of actively managing that position just to help us maximize the profit. And it's done well for us. So we knew what was going to happen. We knew that the $98 Solana signal had been on the table for weeks at this point. We're going to go and see what's on the table now that everyone has flipped to being giga bullish. Just like that, crypto Twitter and crypto and whatever area you're getting your news from just went from extreme fear, giga bearish, we're going to zero, to having one green day flip a lot of the sentiment. Where do we go from here? I have no idea. Will it be bearish? Will it be bullish? I have no idea. But I'm going to make a plan on assets that I want to trade regardless of market conditions. And that's what we're going to do now. So just timestamp if you're seeing this, 143 Solana, 87.5, 87.6. Let's just see what Bitcoin got up to today real quick. We had a nice pump. Things are pumping from a rumor, from what I understand, that tariffs are going to be, you know, like lightened up or whatever. I don't give a shit. Look, that can be whatever people tell themselves is why news pumps or what pumps the markets. But mathematically speaking, we were oversold pretty drastically. And so we've seen a correction from that. We hit 88.5 today, 88.4. So we're pretty much right there. I want to see what Solana did real quick. ETH is where I'm keeping my eye. So regardless of how you feel on Ethereum, look, I'm personally like a big Solana maxi, but ETH will be, I think, the leading indicator for alts this cycle, and that it will be likely the most hated rally of this cycle if we get to that point. ETH has always been there. There's a ton of money on it, and it's not going anywhere. And so I keep my eye actively on what's happening with ETH in terms of price action, just because that gives me at least a baseline sentiment of what's going on with the alt market. We had this nice pump. We're still maintaining somewhere along those lines. This right here is essentially where the 1-day support was, right at or above $2,000. We fell below that, obviously. Not like a ton. I mean, still, if you were over leveraged, hell yeah, that probably hurt bad. But we did fall through. Right here's where our signal was. And then we are right back, sort of acting as a little bit of resistance right now. So let's see what's up with ETH. Let's see what's up with Bitcoin. If you're new, if you haven't followed along, if this is your first time joining, we use THOR and the trading signals it provides to help us just review and analyze the market and make our plan. It's as simple as that. Let me do this real quick. Boop. So let's start with Papa Bitcoin. It's always nice to go ahead and just use THOR originally when you're coming into the markets after a big move, either up or down, and just see what Papa's doing. Bitcoin dominance is a big part of, how alts tend to trend. And just Bitcoin price action in general can be a big old sentimental pulse just in the whole industry. So for me, Bitcoin, I'm going to go ahead and do what I always do. I've picked the asset that I want on my left-hand side. If you're using THOR, you can access this with Cyberfrog's holdings via our tier-based system, or using Ask THOR as a paper request system to get these trading signals if you don't have Cyberfrogs. It's $5 a signal. You get 48-hour access to the signals, and you can join our Discord if you want to learn how to use it a little bit better, or look at these classes. So left-hand side, I picked my asset, I got Bitcoin, and this is what I always do. Maybe you trade a little bit differently than I do, but I always want to know the big macro market positioning that we're in and understand it from the most zoomed out perspective that I have. And I do that by navigating to the 1-day time frame, which is the highest time frame that we have trading signals on. And it is still right in the middle of where we've been looking this whole time. We've had both of these signals active for a little while now. This short right here is fairly new. You can see the date that the signal was generated by THOR. And just anytime you start looking at signals, the key points for you to recognize is obviously long or short, what your entry zone is, and then the big thing is the invalidation level. That's what people won't really often consider when looking at these signals. But a good rule of thumb, just as you're starting to learn how to use our trading signals, is that the invalidation level on longs generally means that's the resistance. If it breaks through resistance, that invalidates this signal. Cool, right on. And for shorts, invalidation level tends to be support. If it falls through support at this price, this is no longer mathematically probable. That's a good rule of thumb. You're always going to want to come in, and as you're looking at signals, as much as you're paying attention to the entry zone, you're also going to be paying attention to the invalidation zone. Otherwise, you can't make a plan because you're not using all of the information at your disposal. So fun things that we have are a 50-50 market. Now, how you approach the trading signals and how you use these signals will differ based on if you own Bitcoin, if you're looking to just take a perpetual trade, if you're just a trader trying to just make money. So situationally, it's all going to, be dependent on where you're positioned personally. How is your money allocated? Are you a spot trader? Did you buy Bitcoin at 20,000 and now you're looking to know when to sell most profitably? Did you buy at 120 and you're looking to know when to DCA in? You are going to use signals as it befits your situation. For us and these signals, it can tell us a story that I'm going to at least walk through for Bitcoin right now. Both 50-50 on the table. Bearish and bullish scenario. You need to build your plan for both situations, regardless of what's happening or what the news says. For me personally, 1-day signals, I don't even have it pulled up right now, but I'm going to Let me just pull up our data real quick. Why do I care about one-day signals on THOR? Let's just find out why I care. And look, for all who come to the classes every day, I'm sorry that this is so repetitious, but it's worth bragging about because we have a 71% cumulative win rate on Bitcoin with a 70% win rate on our one-day signals. I take one-day signals for Bitcoin on THOR very seriously because 70% of the time, I'm going to be on the right side of that trade, and 7 times out of 10, I'm going to have a profitable trade. That's why I take it seriously. Now, for me, I own Bitcoin. I don't plan on selling it. I don't plan on selling fully out of my position. I want to accumulate more Bitcoin. That's my overall goal for my plan. And so that is how I personally use THOR signals, is I want to use them to know when to buy and sell to make more Bitcoin. And for me, when I see a big one-day short, that is a spot trader, someone who just owns Bitcoin. I don't have to go and open up a big perpetual short. What I'm doing at these short intervals is I'm taking that as an opportunity to sell or take profit on some of my spot bags. If I'm not in profit because I bought 120, maybe I'm not going to buy or sell right there. Maybe I'm not going to take that loss. If I bought at 60 and I didn't sell at 120, this is an opportunity for me to say, hey, this is a great place for me to take some profit if I want to. The same can be said if you're just a perpetuals trader. You can just come in and take this signal as a clean signal. This is likely going to be relevant even after the 24 hours it takes us to upload this video. One-day signals take time. And if we're talking about it, what you need to do, and if you're seeing this, not live, is you need to check and see if it has gotten to or surpassed this level right here. And if it has, that's not a clean signal anymore. I'd suggest joining our Discord, coming in and talking to people, or going to taptrade.io/Thor and doing an Ask Thor request, which I will walk through at the end of this. So for me right now, I'm going to sell some of my spot Bitcoin at that 90 to 91 level. That's not going to be somewhere where I'm going to sell a ton of my Bitcoin because I'm not really looking to take 30% of my Bitcoin off the table. I want to hodl that personally. But what I will do is a responsible sell somewhere within like a 3 to 7% range of my spot holdings, because what I'm going to do is hold on one second. My VPN died. There we go. Sorry, I think my internet went out. So what I was saying is, hold on, let me just make sure I didn't lose anybody. Hope you guys got me still. All right. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm not going to sell a ton of my Bitcoin right here at 90,000. I'm going to sell maybe 3% of my spot holdings right here. And then I'm going to DCA back in that same amount of capital I took off the table back at these take profit levels. If Bitcoin keeps pumping, I'm going to still have Bitcoin left. I'm not worried about that. If it dips, I have a 5% more purchasing power than when I originally started. That's how I personally use this Bitcoin signal. The same is the exact same in reverse. I don't care if Bitcoin dips personally. I don't care if we go below 80K. A lot of people have been waiting for this signal we're going to be talking about, and even lower, 75K. When you see both a long and a short, on a long time frame, it does require room to breathe, and it can give you your entry point if you're trying to DCA in and just accumulate more Bitcoin. It can also give you just a 4 to 7% trade if you're looking to just buy and sell. And the same can be said for this short over here. I am personally going to sell 90 to 91K Bitcoin. I'm going to sell probably like 3% of my Bitcoin, and I'm going to recompound that. I'm going to take profit 1 maxi, probably about 80% right here, and save another 20% for take profit level 2. If I can add 5% to my Bitcoin holdings from that, originally sold amount, that's a great trade. That's 5% more Bitcoin than I sold. That's effing awesome. Hell yeah. For me, that's all I need. That's as far as I personally need to go with Bitcoin. Now, if you want to trade Bitcoin, if you want to get into like active day trading Bitcoin, there are millions and millions of dollars in that market, and it is a great asset to day trade if that's what you're into. And let's just see how well we are at, performing that. Well, lo and behold, pretty good. 81% win rate as a cumulative win rate on our Bitcoin 15-minute signals. If you looked anywhere else to try and find an algorithm that outperformed that, I would be willing to bet a pretty large amount of money that, one, no one would give you access to an 81% winning rate algo on Bitcoin, and two, that you'd have to be able to shit gold bars in order to fucking buy it from somebody. For us, you can use a $5 pay-per request system and get your 15-minute Bitcoin signals. Let's see what's up on those for free right now, because you have taken the time to join our class. 15-minute signal, boom, on the table right now. It's not a huge range, but for Bitcoin, a 2% trading range can feel pretty large, especially if you're applying margin to it. I'm not going to take this signal. I don't really trade 15-minute signals. It's not for me. I have other, things to do throughout the day. And so because of that, I don't really trade 15-minute signals. But 8 times out of 10, that's a winning trade. That if you set a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio right here, and you put a max drawdown of 2.4% and your first take profit at 2.4%, there's an 80% chance that that will hit take profit before it hits your stop loss. Pretty cool. I'm not going to trade Bitcoin on a 15-minute level, though. It's just not for me personally. But you can do so, and you can do so with a insane competitive edge on the market with the THOR and tap signals on 15 minutes. For the 1 hour, now we see this same 91K signal right there on the 1 hour. What does that tell us? If you've been following along, you know that simply refers to the time frame that we should expect to get into this signal. If that signal's showing only on the 1 day, you approach that signal knowing that it could take a couple of weeks to get into that entry point and potentially a couple of weeks to get to the take profit level. When it starts showing on lower time frames, that adjusts my time horizon for when I need to enter this trade. And look at that. The take profit is even higher of a trading range than on the 1 day signal. That's not uncommon. That's just saying that, you could expect more volatility. So let's just make sure that we're in the same range. 1 day signal, 901 to 91.1. I think it's a little bit lower and a little bit higher. Yeah, see, it's 9,500 and then 91. It's a slightly adjusted range with a slightly adjusted take profit level. For me personally, the 1 day signals generally have a heavier weight in terms of what the market chooses to do against them. And so I would likely use the 1 day range as my entry point, and then also the 1 day take profits as my exit point. But seeing it on the 1 hour says, hey man, this is really potentially on the table within the next week or so. If I wanted to take profit at 91K Bitcoin, the fact that it's on the 1 hour signal says, hey bro, you need to set your orders most likely, because this could happen pretty much at any time. Within the next couple of days to even today. This lights a fire under my ass. Not the fact that the signal is a little different or anything like that, but just because, hey, my plan was to take a 91K profit right there. The 1 hour is telling me I need to do that pretty soon. My plan is starting to form just in this short amount of time. My plan is, all right, let's set my sell. I'm going to sell, like I said, 3% of my Bitcoin, and I'm going to average out, DCA out within that range. Generally speaking, I will go on the lower side. I'll take profit sooner. I don't mind. I'm a profit maxi. I don't care. I'm not going to stress out holding for an extra 1%. I don't care. If I'm making money, I'm doing well. If you're making money, you're outperforming 99% of the traders on any social media platform that you find. Make money, that's the goal. So doesn't matter for me personally. I'm a take profit 1 maxi, and I am so comfortable having my entry right here. Now, hypothetically speaking, if it continues to pump, if it continues to go the wrong direction, a couple things happen. You either hit your stop loss, or there's another THOR signal that pops up on a time frame that you're comfortable trading, and you can do whatever you want, but generally speaking, I'll add to my position. A 1 day signal, if I'm taking a big fat ass short, I will be willing to add to my position if there are signals showing higher on like a 4 hour time frame. 100%. I will add to that position. Or I'll sell more of my Bitcoin if it gets to really exceed that short. No big deal. If we get to 100K, yeah, I'll probably sell a little bit more Bitcoin. No big deal, whatever. Now, if you're shorting it, if you're actively doing a perp, that's when your risk management comes into play. And that's when you need to find what your plan is and just trade it. So what does it say on the 4 hour? All right, cool. Same thing. 91K Bitcoin. Thor really wants us to see 91K Bitcoin unless we fall under 80K. Now let's just make sure. Yeah, 81K for the invalidation level, 80K for the invalidation level. And that's where we'll continue working through how to interpret Thor. I've seen my target is now 91K, basically. Tons of short across the board with profits ranging from 4 to 7% as it stands right now. What's on the other side? What's the, oh shit, that trade didn't go the right direction move, or, oh shit, whatever, blah, 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 adjusted the markets. And now we have to be ready to have our bear thesis. Let's go ahead and do that. I know a couple things. Until Bitcoin falls below 81K, I'm expecting to hit 91. I think we're going to hit 91K Bitcoin personally. I think that that's probably on the table pretty soon. If and when we do, there will be a large amount of resistance there. And got you on mute. Sorry about that. If you do have questions, just pop them in the chat and then I'll unmute everybody at the end. So anyways, my thesis, is the same. I want to sell 91. And now what do I do if the fuck happens, right? Invalid at 80, invalid at 81. Do we have any signals that invalidates our bull thesis? Are there any signals that show, hey, dude, we could fall below 80K still. Don't get super giga bullish yet. Same thing. We start zoomed out on the 1 day, and lo and behold, yes, there is. This 1 day signal, which is invalidated by this signal, not uncommon to see. That's not Thor doing anything other than telling you, we say it's not a crystal ball, but it is like that, I don't know what douchey fucking expression I'm going to use, but when like Doctor Strange sees all the possibilities, it's like sort of an end game. That's sort of what's happening. And that's really helpful in just knowing how to navigate it. So look, boom, I want to sell. If we fall below this invalidation level right here, I know that I'm not going to see 91K, at least right now. But where should I buy again? Do I want more Bitcoin? Do I still want to take a profitable trade? Well, if we fall through, I'm going to buy right there. I'm happy to add to my Bitcoin bag almost at any price if there's a 1 day signal on it. You should be too. Not financial advice, but a couple of things. One, you're getting the most mathematically precise and favorable entry point given the current market conditions at this, price range and everything. This is a big macro level of support. You also just have a flat trade on the table with a 4 to 7% return. And you're buying Bitcoin, a little bit above the major pullback that we just got. It filled this fair value gap right here. There's a lot of people saying, hey, we still have a huge fair value gap right here, which we do. And that's at 72K. We don't have any signals for 72K right now. So mathematically, that's not really on my radar. But what is on my radar is a retest of essentially the bottom range of this fair value gap right here. If you don't know what to do, if you get to a position where like, bro, there's already too many options on the table, what I suggest doing is start by taking a breath. And if you are in our Discord or in our community, starting to talk about your situation and just simply working through the logic for as it applies to your personal situation. Do you need money? You know when to take profit. Do you have money? Do you have cash and dry powder that you're looking to put back into the market? A 1 day signal with a 70%, with a 70% hit rate is a pretty dope place to put some capital if you're trying to trade. So, all things considered, this and this are both great trades. Both of them have a 70% chance of being profitable. Should the market go in either direction, you now know your macro target for bearish or bullish scenario. Right now, everyone's giga bullish. A week ago, everyone was freaking out saying it's going to zero and selling their bags at a major loss. We were buying them. Cool. So for me specifically on Bitcoin, we sure as hell bought some down here. You know, I haven't sold it yet, but that's what I'm going to sell at 91. Cool, right on. This is going to be one of those fun little trades we come back and look at probably a week after and see what panned out, because one of these is going to pan out. And 7 times out of 10, we'll come back for the people who took those trades as a flat trade and see profit. So that'll be cool. Just moving to continue like the bear thesis. It's the same signal on the 4 hours we had on the 1 day. Same invalidation, basically. Yes, this does invalidate the bull thesis. It is not a new range. It does not, extend our range at all. It's the same signal. So, all right, cool. That big macro moves on the table a little bit more short term, possibly. And zooming in, 1 hour, do we see that signal to start? I don't. But we do see some signals that don't invalidate our bull thesis. At least I don't think that they do. We had one invalidation at 81. So when you get to a point where you're trying to see and make sense of a bunch of different signals, the place that it starts is asking yourself, are you trying to be an active day trader? Are you trying to just make USDC? Are you trying to have a long-term investment strategy? If and when you get to the point that you say, hey, I'm a day trader. Cool. I expect that you have your risk management dialed in. I expect that you understand what assets you prefer to trade, all of that good stuff. And then hell yeah, we just gave you day trading ranges with 3, obviously, entry and exit points, all of which are mathematically probable 64% of the time. Oop. Meaning you can take these trades clean. Now, what would I do? Personally, after knowing that we're in a 50-50 market right now from a macro stance, Bitcoin's either going to 91K or it's going below 80K. Okay, wow, surprise, Andrew. Cool, man. You didn't tell me anything. Now, if you're in a 50-50 market and you've put a majority of your capital into those bigger trades and you still are getting antsy and you still want to make some money, or you still want to at least try and make some money and trade, you can use 1 hour signals a couple of different ways. You can take them clean as, they come right here. Buy, average in. Oh, keeps falling, average in. There are 3 ranges, fundamentally, and I'd say mostly stacked on top of each other. Obviously some ranges. I would ignore this one at 85 personally. Why? Because I don't trade anything with a 1% range. I don't really give a shit. I would probably ignore this one too. Why? 2%. I don't really care. 2%. I'm not trying to stare at screens for 2%. Give me the fatter returns. Give me 4, 5, 6, 7. Cool. Then I start caring. 2 and 1 and blah, blah, blah. Noise. Don't care. Same down here at 83. You can say, I'm actively watching the charts. I don't mind keeping up with this. And then those are clean trades. I still have a majority of my capital allocated to the bigger market movements, 4 hour and 1 day trades. But for these 1 hour trades, you could put, if you have $1,000, you could put 5% towards, 1 day signals or 1 hour signals, excuse me. But I would not suggest to anybody who's learning how to use Thor to go out and take a trade with only a 1% return on it. So you can eliminate a lot of the noise or a lot of what people can feel overwhelmed by simply determining what your criteria is for a profitable trade. If you don't want to, regardless of if it's 100% win rate, maybe 80%, let's not be, silly here. An 80% win rate, realistic hit rates that we have on our trading signals for time frames. Those are real numbers. We have assets that trade over 80% win rate. Cool. If you're only making 1%, 80% of the time, it's going to take you some time to really, I think, see the returns if you're doing so in a risk managed way. I generally tend to encourage people to consider more macro trades with higher trading deltas. 1%, if you're leveraged like crazy, or if you really know how to time it, man, you can make a killing on that. Hell yeah, right on. If you're winning 80% of the time too. For the average trader, I would say that it is not worth the stress that comes with it. I would not take a big risk for a small return. That's me personally. So pop a Bitcoin. I'm happy holding out for either or at this point. I'm either going to sell some or I'm going to buy some. That's as simple as that's as complicated as I'm personally making it right here. I'm going to make 5%, ideally compounding back into the asset, or I'm going to make 5% potentially buying in and then taking profit on it if it's a clean trade at the 1 day take profit. Easy peasy. Easy freaking peasy. Now, it's not going to be second nature for you. I can conceptually talk about this all day. And then as it comes to my own personal bags and managing them, the biggest thing you have to stay convicted to is your plan. And if we spend a bunch of time making a plan, you need to stick to it. We just did over the last week, and hey, we're taking profit now. We're actively taking profit on our injective signals. We're actively taking profit on Jupiter signals. We're actively taking profit at this point. It was getting to a point where we were weathering downtrends and having to make a plan for if the trade didn't go our direction. There is power in planning. That's a really lame, but going to be one of my sayings. There is power in planning, and patience pays. We just planned, and our patience is now literally paying us. That's hella cool. Let's look at injective real quick. We were talking, and this was one of the ones that had like an overwhelming amount of signals. We always started out knowing that this was the signal that we were originally in, and let's just see where we're at right now. We bought it around $10 to $8. It dipped hardcore below it. The leverage traders got wrecked. Things were looking bearish. Oh my God, injectives going to zero. Well, it turns out it wasn't, but we wouldn't have known that unless we used THOR. And we didn't know, actually. We just made a plan, and it happened that the plan worked out where we didn't hit stop loss before we did take profit, and now we're taking profit. So right on. We bought here at $10, and we basically got to a point where I worked through it all yesterday that I'm going to be taking most of my profit at $12. I started averaging out already because we had stacked signals that started on the 1 hour time frame. Our first take profit from those entry points that we had on like an $8.70 buy just hit $10.93. That is a decent place for you to take some profit on injective. We have an 8 to 12% trading delta on that, an 8 to 12% opportunity for you to buy more injective with the capital that you had previously tied up in the asset. That's when selling shorts as a spot trader really starts working for your bags. Instead of you just getting an 8%, let's just hypothetically say you sold 100% of your injective position. I don't know what the APY is on injective staking right now, but with one trade, you could literally outperform staking. That's when buying and selling just spot starts making a ton of sense. You're long-term bullish on the asset. You want more of it. You use these shorts as sell opportunities, and you just use your profit or your USDC dry powder to compound back in 8 to 12% more powerfully. Or as we continue to scale out leading into that $12 range, you once again have another 12, 10 to 15, and now 12 to 20% on the table. I am selling, I had said almost 80% of my position staggered in these 3 orders right here in injective that I bought sub $10. I have injective that I bought $33. I ain't selling that right now. That's how trading works, y'all. As a spot trader, I'm not super hung up on it. I bought at a mathematically precise level. That was one of the signals that didn't go. It's a spot deal, so I'm not going to take a loss on it. I'm just going to hold it. Then I will stake it, or if you need to free up dry powder, hypothetically, once again, let's say I fucking was a dumbass and I put all of my money into one signal and damn, it really went the wrong way. You can use these signals to get the most out of your position. You can use these signals to say, all right, dude, should I freaking hold it until it's $50? Should I try and wait for the golden bull market to come back? Or do I need to free up capital because I need to either pay stuff or trade other things or whatever. I don't know what you do with your money. Hookers and blow for all I know. I don't give a shit. But maybe you now have that math on your side to know that this isn't a bad time to average out if I want to free that capital up for whatever. Yeah, maybe I'm taking a loss, whatever. I can't hold any longer, whatever. You know, for me personally, I can. I don't buy things on spot that I'm not willing to hold long term. I trade things that have value. And if the trade goes the wrong way as a spot trader, you don't lose your money, quote unquote. You know, you're holding on to an asset that you overpaid for, but there are other things available to you to maximize the return on that trade over time. Staking is one of them. I generally will trade assets that I can stake for a return. If I do a spot sell and I don't have a stop loss set, or if I don't take a loss, whatever, I'll stake it. I don't care what price Solana is at this point. I bought $8 Solana. A lot of the homies did. I don't care if it goes to $100 again. I'm just sort of putting my money and my profit back into assets that I want to hold long-term, like Solana and Bitcoin, at these precise levels. Now, for Injective specifically, I don't have that like longer-term thesis. That $30 entry point, I am going to hold that for now. It wasn't like a huge buy or anything like that, but I did buy back down below 8, and I have said clear as day, I'm selling 80% of that at these three levels, and 33% of that 80%. That's how I have now made my plan. You are now in an active Injective short. Let's just see once again how Injective's doing. Wow, would you look at that? There was a pretty significant market reaction to this random number that we just showed on THOR. Cool. That random number is heading into, 60 cents away from the first take profit. Still got some room to go down, but it's pretty common to see the markets react to THOR signal ranges. It gets to a point where it's not surprising anymore. We knew this is something really cool too to check out. You see that this signal entry point right here was damn near that invalidation range. Take that 1081 and let's just see if we have that on other signals. No, so we don't. Not on the 1 hour. But even just on the 1 hour, 1081, we got to a place where a short was called, and THOR said, hey, this is going to be resistance, dude. Also, you can justify that internally once again, because this is your invalidation level. And what I said at the beginning of the class was invalidation levels on longs are your resistance. So we had a correlating signal to resistance. That's a pretty good effing trade if I were to, be a betting man. I'm not. I'm a mathematically calculated risk adjusted man. But if I were a betting man, I'd say, look, this to me, I'm going to assumably think we're going to have a market reaction. And what happened? Oh, there goes my undisclosed item. Hold on 1 second. Boop. All right. It got to the bottom of that range right here, and then we had a downtrend. So we got to literally the bottom of that range. If we would have gone below $10.81, we would have technically and mathematically broken through resistance. And if I would have known that going into this trade, I would have assumed I should probably set my trade on the lower entry of this signal, because it's button right up to that invalidation level. So cool. Look, lo and behold, we're in that short. Now what happens? Markets have already reacted. Markets are already adjusting from the recent pump that we had. THOR is already telling us, hey, dude, signal active. Let's see what happens. And this is when you get into your risk management. What's your risk to reward on this trade? Why? Because we've openly discussed that we have two other signals here. For me, I'm a spot trader. I just sold some of my Injective. That's as complicated as it was for me. If you're a perpetual trader and you said, All right, I opened up a short, not a hedge, not anything, just a straight flat short. What's your risk to reward? On an 8% to 12%, you're probably at like a 1-to-1 or 1-to-1.5 ratio. Meaning on a 1, you're willing to risk 8% of your capital to make 8%. On a 1-to-1.5, you're willing to risk, is it 6 point something percent to make 8%. And on a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-2, you're willing to risk 4% to make 8%. That's your own risk. That's your own risk tolerance. That's your own trading strategy. For me, again, if I were a short perpetual trader only, I would have been well aware that there were signals button up to this, and that unless I wanted to get potentially wrecked on this signal as just a flat signal, I would save some additional capital to add to my position at these entry points right here. Or I would just do a 2-to-1 on this trade right here, only being willing to have a max 4% drawdown or something like that. But knowing that there are heavy signals right above that entry point that you just got to, that's important when you're making your plan. So I need to adjust something real quick. Oh, yeah. Just keep falling. All right, I hope y'all can still hear me. And cool. So Injective did the thing. Injective did the thing we thought it would do. It went to over $10.72, and it had a market reaction to it. And cool, I sold some Injective. Some people took shorts. All things considered, we were pretty aware that this was on the table of probability. Now, it can still get back down to $10, $9.65. It did not break through resistance. This is still as mathematically probable as these signals are. So it can get, again, once again, it can get overwhelming when you start talking about multiple assets. You can really wrap your head easily around like a plan for 1 or 2 assets at a time. And when you get to doing like 2 or 3 or more, especially as like a beginner entry or even intermediate level trader, making these plans and understanding the nuances of each of them can get a little bit convoluted the more assets that you're doing. Again, reiterating the most, I think, impactful advice I got when I was learning how to trade: don't overtrade. Pick 1 or 2 assets and really get a feel for it. Really understand, because it will also help you manage your risk, because you're not taking, additional dry powder and taking risk on other trades, whatever it is. So we did Bitcoin, we did Injective. This is sort of like a recap overall. I'm stoked to see us hit our first take profit on the Injective trade. Right on. Now let's see what's up here. But by $12.41, I'm out 80% of my Injective bag that I bought at sub 10. Use a trading journal if you need help keeping up with your stuff too. That is very helpful. So I don't remember what else I said I was going to cover from just like the standard, but we're going to do something fun now. At the end of the class, we're going to use our tool known as THOR Pro. THOR Pro is available to those with over 24 cyber frogs, and it is your fastest way to finding profitable trades in THOR. You can set your trading criteria, and you can sort through every single signal that we have available and find the ones that meet your criteria lickety split. Let's do that now. Takes a second, logs in. So THOR Pro, if you've never seen this interface before, congratulations, you are now on the other side, my friends. There's a couple things that you can do. If you're looking to just take a trade today, maybe we're in the zone on some of these trades, you just want to see what's available right now, and every single one of the cyber frogs that's in these classes right now, screenshot the hell out of these. Y'all want to talk about utility, and you want to talk about what cyber frog holding means? Here is your active signals all across the board. Screenshot away, my friends. I want y'all to win. Holy shit, there's a lot. I'm going to personally simplify this from here. Getting into active helps. You know what's on the table, you know what we've hit entry point on, and you can either do a couple things. You can say, look, I want to hop in on this trade, or, oh shit, I'm glad that I knew that this was an active trade, maybe on a higher time frame, whatever it is. We talked about Injective, we talked about Bitcoin. I don't see anything that's gonna, let's see, look, there's that signal right here. Cool. So you could say, all right, shit, cool, injective hit, right on, right on. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, I don't want to do it. I'll do it one day. When it comes to trading, I like to trade things I'll hold. I will go through and isolate what I'm willing to trade and what I don't want to trade. You know, Cardano, oh man, we have too good of a hit rate for me to ignore it. And then I think I said I was going to do BONK too, so I will cover BONK. And if you'd like to test THOR, specifically with Solana and BONK, you can use the new BONK AI agent to test drive THOR signals free of charge for the next 10 days. Do it. Support BONK. Support us. And after 10 days, though, that was a really fun trial. So let's see what we got. I don't want to trade sand. I don't want to trade sand Bitcoin. I don't want to trade. I don't really like trading Bitcoin pairs, so I usually always eliminate those. Why? Because I don't want to fuck up my Bitcoin, personally. All right, so yeah, this is pretty still an extensive list of trading signals, but you know, this, let's not trade 15 minutes. Let's just go. All right, let's see what the big stuff on the table is. Lo and behold, we got a bunch of stuff. The outcome of this and the main point to remember here is that THOR Pro is the fastest way to sort through signals and to get to the signals that make most sense for you. Maybe you don't want to trade 15 minutes. Maybe you do. You can isolate all of them and just see a big, broad overview of all of our signals all at once. For me personally, I like the 4-hour, and especially when we have this many active right now, that's a really smart place to start, if I'm being honest. Dot ADA, injective, short, 4-hour, boom. Injective, short, 4-hour, boom. AVAX. Yeah, AVAX long, longs and shorts. Where are you at? Where are your bags at? I personally see this, and let's just say I didn't take that trade before. Now I know. All right, cool, dude. It's active. You stand to make 8-10. Do you want to, jump on the bandwagon? Do you want to wait for a better entry? Whatever it is, that's up to me to decide. Dot. This is the last one I want to cover before covering BONK, and we'll go from there. I just used THOR to basically find the dot trade that I wanted to look at. Anyways, and I didn't even know that it was active. So let's just go do that real quick. THOR Pro really is OP. I mean, just if you're not using THOR Pro and you have 24 frogs, highly encourage you learn how to use it. So dot, and then we're going to go do BONK, and then we'll bounce out of here. Big macro moves on dot. Same theory, same strategy, same way I interpret every single thing, every single signal. The way that you go about finding out your trade or making your plan doesn't change. Any of these assets that you see right now through our THOR system, it is the same if you use our Ask THOR system. And our Ask THOR system gives you trading signals not only on crypto or any SPL token, all of your most popular favorite meme coins, same 70% average win rate, but stocks and Forex signals also. You can use these signals, and the way that I personally use THOR is the only way I can teach it. You can use this same approach on any asset. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what market. It doesn't matter bearish or bullish. It's the same approach to every signal. I start on my 1 day. I saw a signal on the 4-hour for dot on THOR Pro that I liked. Cool. Hell yeah. Right on. I start by zooming out to the 1 day. I see what's on the table. $2.70. We're at 460. All right. Shitballs. That sucks. Invalidation at 533. I got my first point. Now I zoom in 4. Now, are any of the signals that I see right here going to take $2.80 off the table? No and no. All right, I see that we potentially have some longs that we did not invalidate. It's the same thing we just saw on injective. We have a heavy short right in front of an invalidation level on a long. we have your known resistance and a corresponding short. Okay, cool. I didn't know fuck all about DOT before. Man, I'm really not going to be able to release this on YouTube. I didn't know anything about DOT or DOT market before I saw that signal. And within 20 seconds, I now said, hey man, that's probably a pretty damn good signal. Let's see how good we are at trading DOT. All right, 4-hour signals, 61%. 1-day signals, 81%. 1-hour signals, 60%. 15-minute signals, 68%. Cumulative total, 66% win rate on DOT. 2 times out of 3, I'm going to be on the right side of probability for this trade. Good numbers, good math, I like. DOT in the last 30 days, 100% on the 1 day, 100% on the 1 4-hour. Okay, whatever, not enough data to really pat ourselves on the back for. This is enough on the 1 hour, 81% in the last 30 days, and then not the greatest, 55% on the 15-minute signals. I now look at this and I say, hey, we're actually pretty good at trading DOT. 2 times out of 3, we're going to be, we got you. I'm going to take that 4-hour signal pretty seriously now because of that. I'm going to reference it again, and we are out of the range if I'm not mistaken. Boop. We had that same thing. Yep. All right, cool. Wow. Why, color me not surprised at this point. Turns out Thor did it again on a same, basically the same situation on Injective. Now we're seeing play out on DOT. We knew the resistance. We knew the first short, and there was a significant market reaction to it. Maybe it doesn't go all the way to take profit right now, but there sure as hell was a market reaction to it, clear as day. Cool. Now what do we do? Well, do we want to hop in? Do we want to FOMO in? Do we want to go and short the hell out of everything? Ask yourself, 1, where's your risk? And then 2, where's your capital? I want to take this signal right here, personally. I already talked about it before. Sile's been talking about it. If you don't know who Sile is and you're watching this on YouTube or TikTok, Sile is our master level trader. He is the engineer and developer of THOR algorithm. He is the top 0.1% trader on the world's largest decentralized platform, DEX, DYDX. Now I guess Hyperliquid is bigger. And he is also the engineer, developer, and trader bringing to life our new Hyperliquid trading vault, where we're really excited to show what a THOR managed automated trading vault can bring to the table for anyone's investment portfolio. That will be very fun to just have the numbers to look at soon. But regardless, our master level trader was talking about wanting this range right here. I knew about that going into it. We got 2 signals stacked on top of each other. I added a small percent of my bags right here. At this point, I'm not going to front run it. I'm going to assume that we're going to retest it, but I do have capital set aside for the higher range right here. That's a great trade. That's an 11 to 17% return. That's a great trade. We have longs on the opposite side. We have the 1-day long that's showing on the 4-hour now, which is something to be very aware of if you're trying to find an entry point, or if you see these heavy ranges. Also, with that, maybe you're short maxi and you're just chomping at the bit here for these shorts. 4.45 right above the first take profit level, right above the first take profit level, right here. Cool. No big deal. What does this tell me? If I get this short right here, I could probably front run taking profit by selling my short in this position right here, or just holding strong and just selling it all at take profit 1. Doesn't really matter. Zoom in and the 1 hour. This is just a range on that. 1%, don't give a shit. 2%, don't give a shit personally. Don't knock it. If you're great at it, right on. 3.75%, getting closer to giving a shit, but I don't. And then 15 minutes. That's just too much noise for me to care about. So, 4-hour maxi with 1 hour short or longs that have not been invalidated. Once again, showing that same short that we basically just went to with the resistance showing right there. That's like the lower part of that trading signal. But that's all I'm going to look at right here. That's enough for me to make a trade off of. I'm going to open up a short. I'm going to put aside $1,000 for this trade. I am going to put most of that in on this percent right here. Let's just say I'm willing to risk $600 on this trade. I'm going to use my risk calculator. I'm going to calculate. It is, what was that, like a 7%? I'll probably do a 1 to 1.5. My stop loss is 5.2. I'm buying, 1,700 dot at the top range of that price. So we might, let me see where we're at. So at the bottom range of this signal, 1,700 dot gives me a 1 to 2 if I'm taking that right there. I'm willing to risk 5%, 5.5% to make that 11%. That's the trade I want. If we get back into this range right here, I probably will add about 20% of the available capital, 20 to 40%, I guess, given how markets are at this range, and then I'll compound and add to it right here. This dot short's a pretty damn good short. I think that that's a good place for us to stop the class. Oh, hold on. I said I was going to cover BONK, and I didn't do it. I bet you can tell how I'm going to approach doing this trade. Oh, look at that. Big old fat short on the 4-hour right there. And back at all-time high. Signal right there, or right below all-time high. Funny enough, THOR called the absolute pico top of BONK. And we had a big old fat short signal right here. And a lot of us took it. It is now saying, to me, this looks like the start of a cup. Could be. Definitely sure as shit could be a cup. That'd be cool. A lot of BONK maxis out there would really like that. 1 day. Yeah, so we got 4.9, and then we also have a really mathematically improbable one, but right here at the very bottom. This is the target that I would set if I were long-term giga bullish. Meme coins are going to the moon, BONK's going to the moon. I'd set my sights right there for my exit. But I would also be aware we are in a massive short right now. It looks like we've been in this range for a couple days now on a 4-hour signal that bounces up and down in that same range. It's not uncommon for that to happen. It gets to the point where if you stay in a range for a long enough time and nothing happens with your money, the markets will try and take your money out of boredom. You can get eaten up with fees. You can start maybe adding leverage or getting impatient and changing your plan without really planning. My big thing that I'd say is just on a 15% trading delta, I would take a 2 to 1 or a 1 to 2 risk to reward. I'd probably have like a 7 to 8% stop loss with a 15% take profit being my first take profit. I don't short too often. If I do, it's a hedge against my spot assets. So I wouldn't personally take this, but we are sitting right here in a big old take profit range for any BONK bought below down here. You guys are up 39% at this point. GG. Nothing on the 1 hour, nothing for 15 minutes. Cool. Active long on 15 minutes. Negligible, negligible, negligible. Not for me, not for me, not for me. That's pretty much it for me. This is a really good basic approach to starting to learn like macro interpretation of THOR signals and how to integrate the THOR signals into your trading profile and portfolio. It is by no means an exhaustive method for using or utilizing THOR, and the way that you can integrate it into your own trading strategy varies drastically depending on your circumstances. My biggest recommendation to anybody seeing these videos on YouTube, TikTok, wherever else we're starting to post them, is to talk to your friends and to talk to the people in our community and to start learning how to do risk-averse trading and lead into day trading. You 100% are capable of learning how to be a profitable day trader if you learn proper risk management, and ideally if you learn how to integrate our trading signals. This gives you an extra tool in your arsenal that most of the time, and I would say with every single asset that we have listed, is over a 50% and primarily around a 70% win rate. 7 times out of 10, you can win trades if you maintain profitable risk management. There are hundreds, I would say comfortably hundreds of people using THOR to actively day trade. You can simply use 15-minute signals. You can simply trade boomer macro 1 day, 4-hour signals. There are multiple ways to use Thor, but regardless of how you use it, it is your competitive edge in the market. And I simply teach one way of learning how to use it. So anyways, that's it for me. If you want to be on the right side of probability 70% of the time with our trading signals, please visit us at taptrade.io. Join our Discord and use taptrade.io/Thor to use our Ask Thor system that gives you trading signals on crypto, Forex, stocks, and even meme coins. That's it for me. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.